Hey y'all, it's Laura. Welcome back to another Coco Vanilla Studio video, and this time we are diving into the Heart and Home collection, which is the collection just before Great Escape, which is the newest one. And this collection had a grateful, homey, autumn sort of theme. I think just homespun, handmade sort of feel to it. There's pumpkins in this one, there's leaves, so definitely kind of an autumn feel. But also there was like some beautiful handmade embroidery type pieces in the icons and lots of beautiful frames. Just, oh, this collection was just absolutely stunning. And it was perfect for these photos of my latest obsession. And yes, obsession is the correct word for my love of this new hobby. You may be familiar if you watch my videos that I have a lot of hobbies. I have a tendency to pick up hobbies fairly frequently and switch between them fairly regularly as well. And I've added crochet to that mix. So crochet has been something that I've wanted to try for a long time, but was a little intimidated by simply because when I sew or stitch things, I typically go for cross stitch or embroidery, and I'm not used to using hooks or like the larger tools. And I also assumed, I guess, that it was hard. And while I'm not a perfectionist, I don't like to fail. And that urge to avoid failure tends to stop me from trying something that I think I will fail. And so for a long time, I've kind of put this off. However, I have been chatting with some new friends here in the Middle Tennessee area that I now live in, and I know several people who do knitting and crocheting, and they've encouraged me to give it a go. And so when my lovely aunt was in town for Thanksgiving, I convinced her to teach me how to crochet, and she did, and I was so excited. I had fun, and I've watched some tutorials since then. I've purchased like a little book so I could keep trying and learning new things, and the obsession is real, folks, because I spent 2 months creating my very first blanket, and it is not perfect. It is messy, but it was such a great learning experience. And I would encourage anyone who is thinking about trying a new hobby to just give it a go, just on a small scale. Don't have to buy all the things. I didn't have to go out and buy 20 different types of yarn or 60 skeins of it. I just had to get a skein of yarn and a crochet hook to use on that yarn. You don't have to buy all of the accessories and things to try something new. So don't let that intimidate you. Don't let the fear of failure intimidate you, because you may find out that it's your new favorite hobby. And crochet is probably not my new favorite hobby, but it's up there. It's up there on the list for sure. I managed to completely disappear in the month of December because I was obsessing over this new hobby, as well as, doing family things and holidays and whatnot. Between those two, I pretty much disappeared. And that's typical for me. I do have a tendency to obsess about a new hobby that I'm excited about and fixate on it in a big way. And I thought the Heart and Home collection perfectly matched the colors that I put into this blanket, which was not intentional. I had literally just picked up a handful of yarn from the local dollar store and used whatever colors I could get my hands on to try this out. So it was a lot of fun to make this blanket, and I really wanted to document the beginning of this particular hobby because I have a strong feeling if I obsess over it this much already, chances are pretty good this is going to be a long-term hobby for me. And I really enjoy having like a bit of a documentation of when things like this start. I've done this before with my scrapbooking even. My very first scrapbook I created in high school. And so in that scrapbook, I have documented the date that I started scrapbooking. And it's kind of cool to be able to go look back and see how long have I been scrapbooking. I have the actual year that I started scrapbooking. And for a lot of us, we don't always know the exact moment things like that happen. We just kind of pick it up along the way, start doing it with friends, or go to a crop or something like that, pick it up, and you're like, oh, I vaguely know when I started. I've been doing this for a while. You kind of lose track. And it's kind of fun to have this, like, oh, I actually started this and this was why. Having that reason of why I started. And this one was definitely just because it was a way to bond with my aunt who came into town for Thanksgiving and taught me how to crochet. But it was also a hobby that I've always wanted to try just to see if I could. And I did. So we're creating a shelf design with this layout. And you can see I have two shelves here. I have used some scraps from the Heart and Home collection to create those shelves. And the wood grain is essentially the base for these two shelves. And I have taken a 12-inch strip of the wood grain paper, chopped it in half, and then hidden the bit that's missing behind my photos so that it looks like a little tricky move here. Looks like that wood grain stretches all the way across the paper, but it does not. It does not. It is only a 6-inch piece of paper, and I have just hidden the end behind my photos. Now, one of the things I am trying to do with this particular layout is create a sense of balance and mirroring. So I am mirroring the top shelf with the bottom shelf. And because, of course, this is a mirror, it is the flipped image. It is not the exact same image. And so where I have my photos at the top left, I then have photos at the bottom right. Where I have the strips of paper along the wood grain at the top of my shelf, I have put them at the bottom of the other shelf. And this just creates a little bit more interest between those shelves. If I make them exactly the same, you're not really going to know where to start. But as we have been trained in the Western world to read from top left to bottom right, I am using that principle to encourage you to take in the top photos first and then move down to the bottom. Now, a couple of elements on this page will move around a little bit as I'm trying things out. I really didn't have a full plan when starting this layout. I just had some scraps and I thought, oh, we could do a shelf design. That would be fun. And so I am going to swap things out here and there. You'll see things move around quite a bit. And that's just me sort of figuring out what I want to prioritize. So on this one, I didn't want to prioritize the title, so I've moved that to the bottom. But I did want to prioritize the journaling, the story of why I'm crocheting, where did this come from, all of that good stuff. And so I've moved the journaling spot up to the top, and then the secondary photo, which is just really a detail shot of the blanket itself so that you can see the stitching, you can see the colors. And the reason I included that is because I've made mistakes. I want to show myself this is where you started, and to show my kids that I'm not afraid to make mistakes. I just want to make sure that I'm learning from those mistakes. And this blanket definitely was a learning experience. I feel like it was a very necessary experience to kind of build up that muscle memory for the crochet stitching itself, and also to give myself permission to try something new and to not have it be perfect the first time. Because if I have a finished blanket, there's a sense of accomplishment there, but also I can look at it as like, all right, so I have improved on this next project over my first project, and seeing that improvement will often encourage you to keep going. And that is something that I would say applies to most things in life. When you finish a project and then can move on to the second one and see the progress that you've made, it is such a huge boost to your confidence to continue on with that project, whether it's for work or play or just for pleasure. You just have this option to compare and contrast how far you've come instead of comparing yourself to someone else. And I think that can be more disheartening rather than comparing to your own journey from beginning to end. So for this shelf design, I am creating some floral clusters with the vellum, the absolutely stunning floral vellum pieces that I have fussy cut from the specialty paper in the Heart and Home collection. And I'm arranging those under my photos at the bottom and over my photos at the top, again with that mirroring. And because I'm using a lot of the same elements at the top and the bottom, we're creating balance on the page as well. So it doesn't feel like all of the attention is in one spot, it's balanced across the page. Now that said, I do on occasion like to have an unbalanced page just for something a bit different, or if I'm really trying to draw a lot of attention to the photos in a big way, I will sometimes do that as well. But these photos are not anything truly spectacular and exciting. They are really just documentation of a hobby that I've picked up. And so they don't need to necessarily be broadcast and glorified in any way. They just have to be present. They just have to exist and be accompanied by a short bit of journaling explaining what I'm doing and why. And that's it. You know, those everyday moments that sometimes you kind of overlook. I think it's kind of nice to add those in with your holidays and your special moments to diversify your albums and create a little bit more interest in those albums. I know that I personally really enjoy flipping through my scrapbook albums because they do tend to be a little eclectic. I haven't scrapped all of the photos from that year at the same time. Sometimes I've scrapped them in the year that they happened and sometimes a lot later. And so I get to enjoy a myriad of designs and of ability in scrapbooking, and I can kind of see the layouts that really have evolved into my current style, whereas the ones that were in my former style definitely stand out as being a little bit different, and I just really enjoy that. I think that it's a nice catalog of my artwork as well as a combined memory book at the same time. So it's a catalog of artwork, it is a memory book, it is a place to share stories, and I think that is what draws me back into scrapbooking all of the time. It's even when I step away from it for a while and I do something else, I always end up coming back because it's just that beautiful mix of art and memory keeping that just draws me right back in. I enjoy it so much. I love looking through the books. My kids enjoy the books. So that is what always just draws me back in. I don't think I will ever leave it permanently. It will just be something that I occasionally take a hiatus from because I do in fact have a lot of hobbies. Now finishing this one up, I am adding some of these little stickers, mostly just the word phrases at the bottom. I also have a little tiny bowl here that has some itty bitty fussy cut florals because I love to fussy cut out pattern paper, and Cocoa Vanilla is kind of the pinnacle of the fussy cutter's dream. There are so many beautiful icons. The papers are set up in such a way that you get such a bang for your buck just getting the papers because you can cut out so many embellishments for yourself. Sometimes there are titles on the papers, sometimes there are different designs that you can use to create flags and banners and tags as well. The cut apart has a ton of different bits and pieces, not just 3x4 cards. It often has border strips. It often has little tags and banners added in, word phrases added in. So it's a really versatile company and I really enjoy all of the collections that come out. Like, I have not gotten one from Cocoa Vanilla that I was disappointed in. I have enjoyed all of them so much. Zoe just nails it every single time. So finishing this one up with some scattering and splattering. Those teeny tiny plurals, of course, are my scattering around my clusters. And then with splattering, I do 2 levels of splattering. One, a controlled splatter using gold Nuvo drops, and then an uncontrolled splatter using some gold ink spray. But that's it for this one, guys. I do hope you've enjoyed it. Until next time. Bye, y'all.